Michigan win over Alabama. Listen, this was honestly, I just sat down and I just said, it doesn't matter to me. I really don't like either of these teams. I'm just going to watch the game, let it happen. I thought it was going to be a great game. And boy, did it live up to it because I thought Michigan was out of it. I even saw some Michigan people tweeting, like, oh, game's over. It's all over. And then Jalen Milroe fumbles. JJ McCarthy leads them down the field. They go for it on fourth down on like their own 35. Jim Harbaugh, major props to him. That was a gutsy move. I don't know if he had any other option to do it, but I mean, at the end of the day, Michigan deserved that win. Their punt returner decided to give them a little bit of a heart attack there at the end of regulation, but hey, by the small margins, they were able to keep it out of the end zone, keep it out of the safety range. Just all kinds of twists and turns. It was such a fun game to watch. Derek, we'll let you go first. What were your thoughts on this win over Alabama?
Yeah, it was huge. Alabama. So for as much as I like to preach on the development of players, and when you're a Michigan fan, you convince yourself that stars don't matter as much in recruiting, and that development matters. But there's a couple programs that recruit at a different level, and Alabama has been one of them. So the notion, it's almost like coming into this week, even though Michigan was favored in the game, it kind of seemed like the notion was they don't got a chance against Bama's going to put them in their place. Bama's going to show everyone that they can't win unless they cheat. But oh, by the way, this isn't the same Bama team that we're used to seeing. So it's like everyone was making Michigan the underdog, taking away all the success that they had throughout the course of the season, but then trying to cover up and say, "Oh, but this isn't the same star-powered Bama that we're used to seeing." But hey, if you look at the 24/7 composite of the talent on each roster for this year, Alabama's number one. Alabama had 18 five-star players on this. Alabama, I think, had 74. 74 of their players are 4 or 5-star recruits. That's a different level. That means that they're going 3 strings deep at pretty much every position on the roster with guys that were 4 or 5-star recruits. Michigan has 2 5-star players, JJ McCarthy and Logan, and only 5-star recruits that are on. So it was a big win because when you look at the actual talent on the field in the program based off of where they came out of high school, when you look at everything that Michigan went through this year, Jim Harbaugh being suspended for 6 games in total, controversially. All right, we just saw recruits pulling up in brand new Lamborghinis to sign on national signing, and Jim Harbaugh took a suspension for saying that he didn't remember whether or not he picked up the tab in 2020 right. But everyone's been pretty quick to back the unfairness in the program this year. And what we've done through the second half of the season, uh, beating Penn State, beating Ohio State with Jim Harbaugh suspended, with a linebacker coach um, player, going into the college football playoff and drawing Bama and having everyone say, you guys were scared to play Bama. You guys can't hang with the SEC. You don't have the same speed that the SEC has. Looked like they had the same speed that the SEC. Um, and it was awesome. But to get some shout outs on what actually took place, that was probably the best coach Michigan game that I've watched since the Ohio State game in 2020. Right, this game, Michigan, Joan Moore, Jesse Minter, Jim Harbaugh, who coached it. Um, it, if it wasn't for couple a couple miscues, this game wasn't an overtime. There was an 11-point swing on special teams miscues, missed field goal, botched extra point, and fumbled punt early on that led to a short field to give Alabama their first touchdown. So the game ended up coming down to the wire in overtime. Defense played absolutely phenomenal. I was so impressed with how our defensive line dominated Alabama the entire game. So Alabama offensively, Milroe had a couple chunk plays, and their running back had the big run and a couple other chunk runs throughout the rest of the game. But that was our D line was not giving any time to look downfield. Our secondary play. There wasn't a whole lot open even if there was that.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it was one of those games where you saw Michigan, like their players were conquering the entire game. Alabama just seemed to get these plays here and there that kind of kept their drives alive, kept making things happen. But I was even just talking to somebody right before I came on here. Like, if it wasn't for the special team miscues that Michigan had, the missed snap on the field goal and the botched punt return, which it was almost two, but the one setting it up for Alabama there, like this game wouldn't have been close. Like, there's no way this game is going to overtime or anything like that. And then ultimately, it was the fumble by Jalen Milroe that gave Michigan, the new life there at the end of the game. Not like they were completely away, but Michigan was like 2 or 3 plays away from a first down, which probably would have gave them the game. And so, you look at all this and how things shaped out. You really do have to just tip your cap to Jim Harbaugh and the coaching staff and what they were able to do. They ran their trick plays, but it wasn't their trick plays that won them the game. Yeah, JJ completed that, crazy pass to
that was
Roman Wilson.
Arguably his best pass of the game, probably to catch the ball, take a hit and complete the pass on it.
Right.
That was huge.
But like the flea flicker, like that didn't, like they were all open, but that didn't even turn into anything because the pitchback, obviously Blake Corum had to block right away. So it wasn't really a chance. But I mean, Michigan lined up and they beat Alabama fair and square. So Justin, what were some of your thoughts on the game?
Yeah. and looking at the game from, I think Michigan won from not only the standpoint of looking at it small picture, right? Looking at the fact that they're going to the national championship, that's a win in and of itself. But just looking at it from the entire scandal that they went through, right? I'm an Astros fan, so I know firsthand what it's like to be a fan of an organization's cheating, but I also know what it's like to, on the outside looking in, I want to, go after Michigan. And I was one of the people that went after him, when Harbaugh got suspended. I think the first game was against Rutgers, and Rutgers gave them all they can handle, and they, one of the games they gave up, I think it might have been the first game he was suspended. They gave up the most points they gave up all season, so, or was it Maryland? I cannot quite remember the team, but that being said, if everybody's waiting on Michigan to fail, right? And not only that, there's mounting pressure of Michigan to win in these big games, okay? So people were already ready to jump on them for not winning in the big games. People were extra ready to jump on them for the cheating, right? So this game in and of itself had so much pressure on Michigan, and they've shown this year the ability to not only, take that pressure on, but still perform. They very much act as a unit, right? Michigan is very much, and this is a testament to Harbaugh and the culture that he's built there. They don't let the noise get to them, and I think that's one of the biggest things to what he was talking about, where Alabama, SEC team and all this other stuff. But if you don't look at the cheating, with a microscope, and you look at Michigan's play over the course of the season, when Connor Stallions was gone, they're still the best team in college football. We hyper focus on that because we want to dismiss their accomplishments, and that blinds us from what we're actually seeing. Michigan has far and away been the best team in college football this year, in my opinion. And, the biggest thing that people were wondering, that defensive line, how's it going to stand up to Jalen Milroe being probably the most dynamic QB they faced? Boy, did they pass that test, And so in the grand scheme of things, this big picture, this win is more important than I think people realize, because it does take a huge monkey off their back. And also it just changes the perspective a little bit and people are still it's never going to go away. When Harbaugh's gone, when this entire roster is gone, I'm telling you, it's never going to go away. As an Astros fan, it's always going to be there to dismiss your accomplishments. But the one way you can counter that is by winning still. and through it all. And Michigan did that. And that's going to be the biggest thing for Harbaugh's legacy and this team going forward.
Yeah, you have any thoughts on that, Derek?
Yeah, and I agree with a lot of it, right? A couple fan bases in particular, JR.
Right,
I know who they are.
Certainly are going to put an asterisk next to anything that happened this season, and anything that happened the last couple of seasons. And but you're touching on some stuff, right? The culture of this team and what's been built by Jim Harbaugh, and not just Jim Harbaugh, but the entire coaching staff. The story of this Michigan football team, it's really unfortunate because there's a couple individuals on this team that are amazing people in the Ann Arbor community. Right, Blake Corum every year is out giving out turkeys for Thanksgiving. So the week of the game, he's out distributing turkeys with money that he made via NIL. JJ McCarthy, always out putting money into the community, putting time into the community. They did a couple toy drives this year that were just absolutely phenomenal for turnouts. This team has a lot of individuals on it that embody the culture that they've developed as a unit of basically the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, right? The team is more important than all of the individual efforts that make up the team. And you see it. You see that there's no I was surprised yesterday. Donovan Edwards was utilized very little in the game plan. And I expected with the matchup against Alabama's linebackers that would be a key potential matchup to take advantage of. And Sharon Moore knows more than I do, and Jim Harbaugh knows more than I do. And their offensive game plan was phenomenal. They had Alabama's defense confused, and that doesn't mean that they scored on every drive. That doesn't mean that they're hitting a bunch of big plays, but that's not Michigan style. The Joel Klatt boa constrictor analogy is what Michigan does. They'll move the ball a little bit, punt. Next drive, they'll go 75 yards and score a touchdown and eat up 9 minutes off the clock. And their defense is going to play good between those two drives. So that's what they do. They got some matchups with the tight ends. They got Blake Corum out of the backfield catching some passes. They had some good motion that opened up some big plays in their run game. They hit Roman Wilson a few times. Tyler Morris with the big play where they got him matched up on a linebacker and he turned it into a touchdown. They've done amazing things, but the story of the team, it's being overshadowed. It should be some really great storylines. Junior Colson, another amazing storyline. I don't want to dive into that one, but if you want to read a great story, look up some information on Junior Colson and what he's gone through to get to Michigan. And he ended up winning the Lot Award this year, which is given to the college athlete that represents the best combination of everything. Member of the community, student athlete, and player on the field. And another just great person from a great family, but that's not the story, right? The story has been Connor Stalions. The story has been a low level staffer with accusations of breaking a vague rule that so far there still isn't anything that's put out there that says, here is the exact rule that was broken, and here is what we're pursuing as a punishment.
Yeah. It's and this is my last thing. It's very it's almost identical to the Astros, right? Because it wasn't written in the rule book, necessarily, but they were still and it could be happening elsewhere, but college football is a business. They're gonna definitely double down and point at the one team that they know is doing it, so they don't put a black eye on the rest of college football. And the other factor is, with what we talked about, that recipe is there for sustained winning. And sustained winning is the one thing that's going to always be there to be like, okay, but we continue to win. And that's going to be what Michigan fans are going to be able to use, similar to the Astros. The Astros continue to win. If Michigan continues to win, sustains its success, they're going to be like, yeah, but clearly it didn't make that much of a difference. And then your argument, low-level staffer, no proof of anything, holds a little bit more weight. So, this is the big time for Michigan for sure.
Well, I said I was talking to somebody right before I came on here, and I told him, I was like, I used the cheating thing for a while, but at
Me
the end
too.
of the day, like that was just my own cope, right?
Me too.
That was my own way of being like, well, my team sucks. So, to deal with this somehow. But I mean, at the end of the day, you look at it and you say, even if something does come out and happen, and, I mean, worst case scenario, Jim Harbaugh leaves Michigan and the coordinators are fired, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, like I said, that's like worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Who knows even what's going to happen. But like, even if something like that does happen, you can take away the wins, you can take away the coaches, but the thing that the NCAA will never be able to take away, that nobody will ever be able to take away, is the highlights of the players, the memories of seeing JJ McCarthy, seeing Blake Corum, like the emotions that you felt watching those games. I'm seeing these videos online of like Michigan fans going crazy after they won the game, and like, the NCAA can take those away. ESPN can try to diminish those all they want and talk about how Jim Harbaugh's leaving and talk about how they cheated, all these things. But at the end of the day, like, you will never be able to rip away from Michigan fans the joy that they felt beating Ohio State 3 times. Going to the playoffs 3 times, going to the national championship this year. Like, nobody will ever be able to take that away from Michigan. And so I look at it and I just say, you know what? Like you said, just keep winning, because at the end of the day, that means it all. And before we get done with this discussion, I want to bring up one player because he was just phenomenal to me, and I'm not hearing anybody talk about him. Trente Jones, however you say it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, for him to come in to that game, Zach Center's down. He's playing right tackle. I mean, Henderson was the one that struggled, right? The left tackle. He's been starting all season long. And Jones comes in there and he played. I mean, the dude played a great game. And he was exactly what they needed. Pass blocking wise, run blocking wise. It was really, really cool to see. Obviously hard for me to see because of my fandom. But when I take a step back and I just look at a player come in and play for his team, like that was cool to see. So that talk about that for a second, Derek, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, so that was the offensive line played great. The only sack that Michigan took was a technicality when Alex Orji came in the game, and they tried to get the 1-man route going, kind of a trick play and catch Bama off guard, and instead of throwing it away, he ran out of bounds with it and lost a couple of yards. So that was the only sack credited against Michigan in the game, which is phenomenal because that was a storyline. Michigan's offensive line hold up against a D-line like Alabama's, and they did. But Trente Jones was great, but Carson Barnhart is another one that fits exactly what you're talking about. And he started at right tackle all season. In the Ohio State game,
right.
When Zach Zinter got hurt, he's the one that slid from right tackle to right guard. And then Blake Corum ran right behind him and had his touchdown run on the next play. He's the one that in overtime, he played a great game yesterday, but in overtime, he's the one that pulled and made the big block on the linebacker to give Blake the lane for his touchdown run in overtime. So it's just a selfless team. I mean, you could talk about the defense in the same capacity, right? Will Johnson, no receptions given up. Only 2 targets his directional game, no catches. Mike Barrett, Mikey Sainra still. You could talk about 8 people on their defensive line that contributed and made game impacting plays. And it's funny because I was watching the game, and when there's going to be an offensive MVP and a defensive MVP, I was like, how are they going to come up with a defensive MVP? Like, no one person just had such an eye-popping game because they all did.
Yep.
Yeah. That was
to clarify one thing from my end too. I'm in no way a Michigan support. I like. Sorry, Derek, but like ever since COVID, right? And us and Ohio State fans kind of joined forces into wanting to play football, and Michigan seemed like the one that didn't want to play football. I kind of had a negative opinion about him, and I've kind of been on the Ohio State side. So I'm saying this from that perspective. So you better.
So Derek is enjoying 2 people eat instead of just one.
Right.
But I'm being unbiased, and I'm trying to be realistic.
But there's probably some misconceptions on your perspective. the previous president of
Probably.
Michigan was very much not pro sports
Yeah.
at all. And Jim Harbaugh, the staff, the players, they organized rallies, they organized marches. The players' parents were on campus marching, trying to do everything that they could to allow some sort of a season. That's all that the team wanted to do, is to play football. It was the president at the time recorded a video of him wishing all of the students a happy Labor Day weekend when the Michigan football team was marching through campus to rally, to try and get support from the administration to let them have a season.
Well, that's nice and dandy, but the game I went to this year in Nebraska was the Michigan game, so that also.
That makes it hard to root for him. My boy, Casual Big Ten Kent, he said, "Did you hear the head ref was a Michigan fan? Follow up: did Michigan fans deserve that after the Lions game Saturday?" I did hear that he was a Michigan fan. I question the credibility of the account that came from. We'll talk about that in a little bit when we discuss the Ohio State cheating. Did they deserve that after the Lions game Saturday? I don't watch a ton of NFL, but I did see that, and I did feel bad for the state of Michigan. I think that's the first time I ever felt bad for the state of Michigan in my life. And I also had a little bit of attachment to it because of Taylor Decker, Ohio State offensive lineman. But I don't know. Did you guys think the reffing was fair? I mean, obviously there was that running into the kicker, I guess, that was missed. I didn't hear the explanation on it because I had it muted at the time. I thought it seemed like that might have been missed. There was a blatant holding on Alabama that I saw on one of the DNs that was missed. I feel like there was missed calls on both sides. It didn't seem blatant. What did you guys think of the reffing?
I thought it was a decently officiated game. Yeah, that was a missed call and running into the kicker. That certainly should have been running into the kicker. There were a couple small things here and there. Like Michigan had a good drive going, and they got called on a personal foul for finishing a block, basically. Bredesen.
Oh yeah, that was stupid. Yeah.
Bredesen finished a block, and there's probably a dozen other times you saw players do that throughout the course of the game, because that's just kind of what they do when they pancake somebody. Is
the same thing happened to one of the Ohio State offensive linemen in the Notre Dame game. And so when I saw it, I was like, well, I thought it was stupid against Ohio State, so I better think it's stupid against Michigan if I want to be consistent. So
yeah, right. And then the only other thing that I saw that comes to mind right now was towards the end of the game. I think it was on the touchdown drive. JJ McCarthy got tackled like 4 yards out of bounds. Where 99% of the times when you see a quarterback get hit and that far out of bounds, you're going to see a flag thrown.
Patrick Mahomes,
and there wasn't one
inbounds.
Yeah, I know, right? Mahomes gets him inbounds.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
Very true. Hey, thanks for listening to the Big Ten Huddle. Please do like and subscribe. We appreciate that. If this was your first time listening, we are the Big Ten Huddle. We cover all things Big Ten football and basketball. We have a long episode every Sunday, Tuesday, and Wednesday night, all at 9 o'clock. So come in, check us out, get in the chat, let us know what you're thinking. We would love to have you join us and learn more about the Big Ten.